The gunshot shattered the silence of the Hanamdong estate at exactly 11:47 p.m. Inside the obsidian-tiled conference room, 6 men sat frozen around a marble table. No one moved. No one breathed. The 7th man, the one who had been speaking, now slumped forward, blood pooling beneath his designer suit. Kang Min-jae lowered his gun with the casualness of someone adjusting a cufflink. He was 43 years old, dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit that cost more than most Seoul apartments, and his face held the kind of stillness that comes only from having killed so many times that death no longer registers as an event. "Clean this," he said to no one in particular, and left the room. Behind him, the remaining men scrambled into action with practiced efficiency. This was Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, the body would be gone, the floor would gleam, and the man's family would receive a generous settlement along with a very clear message about silence. Min-jae walked through the hallway of his compound, past original Goryeo dynasty paintings and security monitors showing every angle of his 3-acre property. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. 47 messages since dinner. They could wait. Everyone could wait. He stepped onto the balcony overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline. The city spread before him like a kingdom, which in many ways it was. The Kang family controlled shipping, real estate, entertainment, and several industries the public would never know about. They had controlled them for 3 generations. Min-jae's grandfather had built the empire on blood and strategy. His father had expanded it with calculated brutality. And Min-jae had perfected it. But perfection, he had learned, was exhausting. He loosened his tie and pulled up his left sleeve, revealing the inside of his forearm. There, just below the crease of his elbow, was a birthmark roughly the size of a coin. It looked like a starburst or perhaps a flower, dark brown petals radiating from a central point. His mother had called it the mark of heaven's mistake. His father had called it the stain. Min-jae called it nothing. He simply kept it hidden. Only 3 people knew about it. 2 were dead. The 3rd was his younger sister, and she lived in Tokyo, deliberately far from the family business. The mark meant nothing. It was random skin pigmentation. Yet his mother had been superstitious, had whispered old Korean folk beliefs about birthmarks carrying curses or blessings, about how identical marks meant connected souls. Nonsense, of course. Min-jae pulled his sleeve down and went to bed. 48 hours later, his entire world would crack open. The Shilla Hotel lobby was a monument to wealth. All cream marble, towering flower arrangements, and staff who moved like synchronized dancers. It was Friday afternoon. The space crowded with tourists, business executives, and Seoul's elite checking in for weekend conferences. Min-jae arrived at 2:15 p.m. with his usual entourage. 4 bodyguards in dark suits, his assistant carrying 2 phones and a tablet, and an aura of menace that made people instinctively move aside. He was there for a meeting with a Japanese construction magnate. Legitimate business. The kind that looked good in newspapers. As his group moved through the lobby toward the elevators, something strange happened. The crowd parted as always, but one figure didn't move. An elderly black woman stood directly in his path. She was perhaps 75, maybe 80, wearing a simple navy dress and comfortable shoes. Her silver hair was pulled back neatly. Her posture was straight despite her age. And her eyes, deep brown and unflinching, locked onto Min-jae's face with the precision of a sniper. "Sir." One of the bodyguards stepped forward, hand moving toward his jacket, but the woman raised one weathered hand, palm out. "Hello, sir," she said in English, her voice carrying a slight Southern American accent. Clear, calm, unafraid. The lobby seemed to hold its breath. Hotel staff froze. Nearby guests sensed something wrong and edged backward. Min-jae stopped walking. His bodyguards formed a tighter circle. His assistant's hand hovered over her phone, ready to call for backup. The old woman didn't flinch. "My granddaughter," she continued, each word deliberate, "has a birthmark, same as yours." The world tilted. Min-jae felt his pulse spike for the first time in years. The bodyguards looked at him, confused, waiting for orders. His assistant's face showed nothing, but her eyes asked a question. How does she know? The birthmark was hidden. Always hidden. Under suits, under long sleeves, under decades of secrecy. "Remove her," Min-jae said, his voice ice. "No need for that," the woman said, still calm. "I just need 5 minutes of your time. Private conversation. Then I'll leave peacefully, and you'll never see me again." "You'll leave now," the head bodyguard said, reaching for her arm. "Do not touch her." Everyone froze. The command had come from Min-jae himself. He studied the woman's face. No fear, no calculation, just absolute certainty. This wasn't a scam artist or a desperate person looking for money. This was someone who had traveled a long distance to deliver a message she believed was true. "Conference room C," Min-jae told his assistant. "Empty it. 5 minutes." "Sir." "Now." 3 minutes later, Min-jae sat across from the old woman in a small, soundproof hotel conference room. 2 bodyguards stood by the door. His assistant waited outside with strict instructions. If he didn't emerge in 7 minutes, activate emergency protocol. You have 4 minutes left, Min-jae said. Speak. The woman folded her hands on the table. My name is Dorothy Washington. I raised my granddaughter, Amara, since she was 3 days old. Her mother, my daughter, died when Amara was 23. Before she died, she told me everything. Everything about what? About you. About Seoul. About the pregnancy. About the fire that wasn't really a fire. Min-jae's expression didn't change, but inside, something ancient and buried began to stir. 24 years ago, Dorothy continued, my daughter Jasmine was working at an international hotel in Seoul. She was a concierge. Beautiful girl. Smart. She met a young Korean man who came in sometimes. You. I've never. Hanam Boutique Hotel. You came in every Thursday at 7 p.m. You sat at the bar. You drank whiskey, neat. You read English newspapers because you just returned from studying in London. You were 21. Min-jae's hands, resting on the table, curled slowly into fists. You talked to her for 3 months before you asked her to dinner. You took her to a French restaurant in Gangnam where they didn't speak Korean because you were ashamed to be seen with a black woman in public. Stop. But you fell in love anyway, and she fell in love with you. And when she got pregnant, you promised you'd leave your family. You promised you'd build a new life. Min-jae stood abruptly. This is a fantasy. A con. You had a birthmark, Dorothy said quietly. Inside of your left forearm. Looked like a flower. You told Jasmine it embarrassed you because your mother said it was bad luck. The room went silent. Min-jae's breathing was controlled, but his mind was racing. 24 years ago. The Hanam Boutique Hotel. Thursday evenings. Jasmine. God. Jasmine. He had buried that name so deep, he'd almost convinced himself she never existed. There was a fire, he said slowly, his voice rough. The hotel. She died. Dorothy shook her head. That's what they told you. She didn't die in any fire. Your family found out about her. About the baby. They made her disappear. They told you she was dead. And you believed them because you were young and scared and you wanted to believe it. How do you? Because 2 men came to her apartment. Gave her $50,000 in cash and a plane ticket to Atlanta. Told her if she ever contacted you, if she ever came back to Korea, they'd kill her and the baby both. She was 23 years old and 4 months pregnant. What choice did she have? Min-jae sat back down, slowly, like a building collapsing in controlled demolition. She had the baby in America. A girl. Named her Amara. Means grace in Igbo. She struggled. Worked 3 jobs. Got sick. Died of breast cancer 7 years ago. Dorothy's voice cracked for the first time. But before she died, she told me everything. And she showed me the birthmark. What birthmark? Amara has the same mark. Exact same. Inside of her left forearm. Same shape. Same size. Same position. The room spun. You're lying, Min-jae whispered. But even he could hear how hollow it sounded. Dorothy reached into her purse. The bodyguards tensed, hands moving to weapons. She pulled out a photograph. Creased, faded, obviously old, and slid it across the table. Min-jae looked down. The photo showed a young black woman, radiant and laughing, standing in front of Gyeongbokgung Palace. She wore a yellow sundress. Her hair was in braids. And beside her, with his arm around her waist, was a younger version of himself. He remembered that day. Early autumn. They'd played tourist. She'd made him laugh. Actually laugh. For the first time since childhood. He'd felt, for those few hours, like a normal person. I want a DNA test, he said, his voice barely audible. So does Amara, Dorothy replied. She doesn't know I'm here. She doesn't even know your name. But she deserves to know her father. And you? She looked at him with something like pity. You deserve to know your daughter. Min-jae stood again, this time with purpose. Where is she? Atlanta. But I'll have my people arrange. She's here. He froze. What? She moved to Seoul 3 months ago. Got a job. She wanted to connect with her Korean heritage. She doesn't know about you. Doesn't know what I know. She thinks her father was just some man her mother dated who ran away. Where? I'll tell you when you're ready, Dorothy said firmly. First, you take the DNA test. You confirm what I already know is true. Then we talk about how to tell her. Because that girl has been lied to enough. Min-jae looked at this old woman who had somehow crossed the ocean, walked through his security, and detonated a bomb in the center of his carefully constructed life. How did you find me? He asked. Dorothy smiled sadly. Took me 4 years. Private investigators. Old hotel records. Your name was all over the society pages back then. Once I had your name, the rest was just patience. She stood, gathering her purse. I'm staying at the Oakwood residence in Siademan. Room 314. You send your doctors, you take your tests, you get your confirmation. Then we talk. She walked to the door, then paused. Your mother was wrong, by the way. About what? The birthmark. It's not bad luck. It's just love trying to find its way home. And then she was gone. Min-jae sat alone in the conference room for 11 minutes. His assistant knocked 3 times. He didn't respond. His mind was a war zone. If this was true, if Jasmine had lived, if there was a daughter, if she was here in Seoul, if his family had lied to him for 24 years, if somewhere in this city, a young woman carried his blood and his mark and had no idea he existed. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Choi, I need a DNA testing team. Discreet. Untraceable. Tonight. On the other end, his head of security didn't ask questions. Location. I'll send it. And Choi? No one hears about this. Not family. Not the board. No one. Understood, sir. Min-jae ended the call and stood, straightening his suit. In the reflection of the window, he saw his father staring back, cold, calculating, in control. But inside, something he thought had died 24 years ago stirred to life. Hope, or perhaps terror. He couldn't tell the difference anymore. Amara Washington locked the door to her small studio apartment in Mapogu and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds of exhaustion. She'd been in Seoul for 93 days, and every single one had been a fight. The language was harder than expected. The job paid less than promised. The loneliness was crushing. But she was here. She'd made it. And she wasn't going back. She dropped her bag and noticed the voicemail notification. Grandmother. Third one today. Amara loved her grandmother fiercely, but the woman worried like worrying was an Olympic sport. 3 months in Seoul, and Dorothy still called daily to make sure Amara was eating, sleeping, and not being murdered by strangers. She'd call her back later. Instead, Amara changed into comfortable clothes, made instant ramen, and sat cross-legged on her floor mattress, looking at the skyline through her tiny window. Seoul glittered like a circuit board. Somewhere out there was the other half of her story. Her mother had said so little before dying. Your father was Korean. We met at a hotel. He was young. It didn't work out. That was it. No name. No details. Just enough information to create a hole in Amara's identity that had ached for 24 years. She pulled up her sleeve and looked at the birthmark on her inner forearm. The starburst. Her mother had the same one. Grandmother said it ran in families, but Amara had researched enough to know identical birthmarks in the exact same location across generations were extraordinarily rare. Sometimes she imagined it was a sign, a map, a message from the universe that somewhere, someone carried the same mark and the same questions. But that was fantasy. Reality was this. She was alone in a massive city, working a job she didn't love, trying to build a connection to a heritage she barely understood. Her phone buzzed. Text from her coworker, G1. Tomorrow, lunch? I'll show you the best kalguksu place. You need to eat real food, not convenience store triangle kimbap. Amara smiled and typed back. Yes, please. I'm tired of eating like a broke college student. You are a broke college student. Just graduated, yes. 2 years ago. But emotionally, yes, still broke college student. Tomorrow, 12:30. I'll come to your desk. Amara worked at a mid-sized Korean pharmaceutical company as an English documentation specialist. It wasn't glamorous. Mostly she translated medical reports and proofread marketing materials. But it paid rent and it was legal employment with a proper visa, which was more than many foreign workers could say. She finished her ramen, washed the bowl and tried calling her grandmother back. No answer. Strange. Dorothy always answered. Amara left a message. Hey, Grandma. Just got home. I'm fine. Seoul is still standing. I'm still employed. Call me back. Love you. She hung up and felt the familiar tug of worry. Dorothy was 77, still sharp as ever, but age was age. Living alone in Atlanta. Refusing to move in with Amara's aunt because I'm not ready to be managed like a child. Stubborn woman. Amara opened her laptop, intending to study more Korean, but instead found herself scrolling through photos, pictures of her mother. Young, beautiful, alive. There was one photo in particular, her mother standing in front of some palace in Korea, wearing a yellow dress, laughing at something off camera. Her eyes were bright. She looked happy. Amara had asked once, who took this picture? Her mother had gone quiet. Then, someone I used to know. A friend. Something like that. That was all she'd ever said. Amara closed the laptop and lay back on her mattress. Tomorrow was Saturday. Maybe she'd go to Bukshan Village, walk the traditional streets, take photos, try to feel like she belonged. Or maybe she'd just sleep until noon and recover from the week. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Scam calls were constant in Seoul. But something made her pick up. Hello. Silence on the other end. Not dead air, someone was there. She could hear breathing. Hello? She repeated in Korean. Yobaseo? A man's voice, low and strained. Is this Amara Washington? Her stomach dropped. Who's asking? A pause. Someone who needs to ask you a question. I don't. Do you have a birthmark on your left forearm? Looks like a flower. Amara's blood went cold. She pulled the phone away, stared at it like it was a snake, then brought it back to her ear. Who is this? Answer the question. I'm hanging up. Please. The word cracked, almost desperate. I just need to know if you have the mark. Amara's hand instinctively covered her forearm. How did you get this number? Answer the question, and I'll explain everything. Her heart hammered. This was insane. This was exactly the kind of situation her grandmother warned her about. Strange men calling, asking invasive questions, probably trying to... Wait, did my grandmother give you this number? Silence. She did, didn't she? Oh my God. What did she do? The man's voice shifted, became more controlled. Your grandmother came to me today. She told me a story. I need to know if it's true. What story? About your mother. About a man she knew 24 years ago. About you. Amara's world tilted. Who are you? My name is Kang Min-jae, and if your grandmother is telling the truth, then I think I might be your father. The phone slipped from Amara's hand and clattered onto the floor. Dorothy Washington sat in her hotel room, staring at her own phone. She turned it off after the meeting with Min-jae. She needed time, space, silence. What she'd done was either the bravest or most foolish act of her life. For 4 years, she'd hunted this man, hired investigators, spent her savings, followed leads across the internet through old newspaper archives, through hotel employment records that should have been destroyed. When Jasmine died, she'd made Dorothy promise. Find him, tell Amara the truth. But Dorothy had waited, watched Amara grow up, graduate, struggle with identity with the questions that had no answers. And when Amara announced she was moving to Seoul, I just need to see it, Grandma. I need to understand where half of me comes from. Dorothy knew the time had come. She'd flown to Seoul 2 days ago, spent 48 hours gathering courage, then walked into that hotel lobby and gambled everything on one conversation. Now it was done. The truth was in motion. Her phone buzzed. She turned it back on. 3 missed calls from Amara. Dorothy took a breath and called her back. Amara answered on the first ring. Grandma, what did you do? Baby, a man just called me. Kang Min-jae. He says he's my father. He knows about the birthmark. He says you went to him. Grandma, what the hell is happening? Dorothy closed her eyes. I found him, Amara. Your father. I found him. You... Amara's voice broke. You've been in Seoul? You're here. I had to tell him before I lost my nerve. You couldn't have, I don't know, told me first? If I'd told you, you would have tried to stop me. Of course I would have stopped you. Do you know who this man is? I looked him up. Grandma, he's dangerous. He's connected to. I know who he is. Then why would you go anywhere near him? Because he's your father. And you deserve to know. Silence on the line. Then, quietly, is he really? DNA test will confirm it. But yes, baby. I believe he is. Does he want to meet me? Dorothy heard the tremor in her granddaughter's voice. The little girl who'd always wondered, who'd asked 1,000 times about the man who'd left, who'd constructed fantasies and fears in equal measure. I think he does, Dorothy said gently. But Amara, you need to understand, this man is complicated. His world is not a safe place. Your mother left for a reason. What reason? His family. They threatened her, paid her off, made her disappear. He didn't know she was alive all these years. He thought she died. Oh my God. So if you decide to meet him, you go in with eyes open. You understand. Where are you staying? Oakwood Residence. See a demon. I'm coming over. Amara. Now, Grandma. We're talking about this now. The line went dead. Dorothy set down her phone and walked to the window. Seoul sprawled below. A city of secrets and steel. Somewhere out there, Min-jae was making his own calls, arranging his own plans, trying to control a situation that couldn't be controlled. And somewhere between them was Amara. The eye of a storm she didn't create but would have to survive. Dorothy prayed she'd done the right thing. But prayer, she'd learned, didn't come with guarantees. Min-jae's private office occupied the top floor of the Kang Corporation headquarters in Gangnam. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, a view that made visitors feel small. At 9:47 p.m., he sat alone in the dark, staring at the photograph Dorothy had given him. Jasmine. God, she'd been beautiful. They'd met exactly as Dorothy described. He'd been freshly returned from London, heir to an empire he didn't want, drowning in family expectations. The hotel bar became his refuge. And Jasmine, Funny, brilliant, unimpressed by his family name, became his oxygen. For 6 months, they'd built a secret world. Stolen evenings, midnight phone calls, plans whispered in the dark about running away, starting over, choosing love over legacy. Then she told him she was pregnant. He remembered his panic, his terror, and then, when the terror settled, his determination. He would leave. He would protect her. He would build a different life. 3 days later, his father summoned him. "The girl is taken care of," his father had said, voice cold as a blade. There was a fire at her apartment building. Tragic. These things happen. Min-jae had fallen apart, screamed, raged, broken furniture. His father waited until the storm passed, then said, "You are Kong. You do not abandon your blood for temporary affection. She was a distraction. Now she's gone. Move forward." Min-jae had believed him. For 24 years, he'd believed him. He pulled up his sleeve and looked at the birthmark. His mother's voice echoed. Matching marks mean matching souls. If Amara existed, if she was here, alive, carrying this same mark. His phone rang. Choi, head of security. "Sir, the DNA team is ready. They can be at the location in 20 minutes. Good. Tell them to take samples from the grandmother, Dorothy Washington. Then bring the samples directly to me. No lab processing. I'll handle that privately." Understood. "And Choi? I need surveillance on a woman named Amara Washington. American. Working in Seoul. I'll send you her details. I need to know where she is, who she talks to, where she works. But quietly. She can't know she's being watched." A pause. "Sir, is there a threat?" "I don't know yet. Just do it." Min-jae ended the call and dialed another number. His sister in Tokyo. She answered on the third ring. "Appa? It's almost midnight. What's wrong?" "Hygiene. Do you remember Jasmine?" Silence. Then, "The woman from the hotel? Of course. You loved her. Then she died. Why are you?" "She didn't die." "What?" "Father lied. She lived. She had my child. A daughter. And she's here. In Seoul." Hygiene's breath caught. "Min-jae, that's not possible. I have proof. Or I will in 48 hours. DNA test. Does father know?" "No one knows. And no one can know. Not yet." "Min-jae, if this is true, if you have a daughter, father will never accept her. The family will never accept her. You know this." "I don't care." "You don't care? You run the entire organization. You think you can just..." "I let them take her once. I won't do it again." Hygiene was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, "You really loved her, didn't you?" "Jasmine. I was 21. I thought I could save the world." "What was she like?" "Your daughter." "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." After they hung up, Min-jae stood and walked to the window. Seoul glittered below like scattered diamonds. Somewhere in that vast city was a young woman who shared his blood, his mark, his hidden history. A daughter. The word felt foreign, impossible, terrifying. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "This is Amara. My grandmother gave me your number. I need to meet you. Tomorrow. Public place. I choose the location. Agree or I block this number." Min-jae stared at the message. 24 years of silence. 24 years of lies. And now, in one text message, his daughter was demanding a meeting. He typed back. Agreed. Name the place. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Insadong. Samcheongdong Coffee Street. Cafe Onion. 2 p.m. Come alone. I'll be there. The dots stopped. Min-jae sat back down, his hands shaking. An unfamiliar sensation. He'd faced death, violence, betrayal. But this undid him. Because if the DNA confirmed what he already suspected, then everything he'd built, the power, the empire, the carefully controlled life, would be revealed as a fortress protecting a man who'd lost the only thing that ever mattered. And he'd have to decide if he was brave enough to tear it all down for a second chance. Amara didn't sleep. She sat with Dorothy in the hotel room until 3 a.m., listening to the full story. Every detail. The threats. The money. The years of silence. "Why didn't Mom ever tell me?" Amara asked, tears streaming. She was afraid. Afraid they'd find her. Afraid they'd take you. She made a choice to protect you, even if it meant you grew up with questions. But she knew where he was. She could have. "Baby, that man's family made her disappear once. You think she wanted to risk them doing it again?" Amara understood, but understanding didn't stop the anger, or the grief, or the desperate need to know if this was real. At 6 a.m., she went back to her apartment, showered, changed, and tried to imagine what she'd say to a father she'd never met. "Hi, I'm the daughter you didn't know existed. Also, your family apparently terrorized my mother. Wanna grab coffee?" It was absurd. Impossible. And yet, in 7 hours, she'd be sitting across from him. She pulled up her sleeve and stared at the birthmark. For 24 years, it had been a curiosity. A conversation starter. A small imperfection she sometimes hid, sometimes forgot about. Now it was evidence. Her phone buzzed. Text from Min-jae. I'll have the DNA results in 48 hours. But even without them, I believe your grandmother. I remember your mother. I remember everything. Whatever you need from me tomorrow, truth. Answers, distance. I'll give it to you. Amara's throat tightened. She typed, "Did you love her?" The response came quickly. "Yes." "Then why did you let them take her?" "Because I was a coward. And I've regretted it every day since." Amara set down her phone and cried. For her mother. For herself. For the father she'd never known. For all the years that had been stolen. When the tears stopped, she stood, washed her face, and made a decision. Tomorrow she'd meet him. She'd look him in the eye. She'd ask every question she'd carried for 24 years. And then, depending on his answers, she'd decide if Kang Min-jae deserved to be called her father. Cafe Onion in Samcheong-dong was all exposed brick and industrial chic. The kind of place Seoul's creative class gathered for overpriced coffee and Instagram photos. At 1:45 p.m., Amara arrived early and claimed a corner table with a view of the entrance. She ordered an Americano she didn't drink and waited. At 1:58 p.m., the door opened. Kang Min-jae entered alone. Amara had seen photos online, corporate headshots, business articles, grainy images from society events. But in person, the resemblance was startling. Same bone structure, same eyes, same expression of controlled intensity. He spotted her immediately and walked over. No bodyguards, no entourage, just a man in dark jeans and a simple black sweater, looking more human than the photos suggested. "Amara," he said quietly. She nodded. "Sit." He did. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. "You look like her," Min-jae said finally. "Your mother. You have her eyes. And your cheekbones, apparently." A ghost of a smile. "Yes. Show me," Amara said. "Show you what?" "The birthmark." Min-jae hesitated, then pulled up his left sleeve and placed his forearm on the table. There it was, the starburst identical to hers in every detail. Amara pulled up her own sleeve and placed her arm next to his. Perfect mirrors. "Oh my God," she whispered. Min-jae's composure cracked. His eyes filled, though no tears fell. He pulled his arm back and covered his face briefly, collecting himself. "I didn't know," he said, voice rough. "I swear to you, I didn't know you existed. They told me she died. I believed them. Why would they do that? Because I'm Kong. And she was black, foreign, not good enough for your family. All of the above. My father, my entire family, they built everything on control. Bloodlines, legacy. A black woman carrying Kong blood? They couldn't allow it. So they threatened her. I didn't know. But they did it in your name. They used your power to terrorize a pregnant woman." Min-jae met her eyes. "Yes, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make that right." "You can't make it right. She's dead. She died thinking you abandoned her." "I know. She worked herself to death to raise me. 3 jobs. No help. She got sick and couldn't afford treatment until it was too late." Min-jae's hands clenched on the table. "If I had known. But you didn't. And that's the point. You didn't ask questions. You didn't fight. You just accepted what they told you and moved on. I was 21. My mother was 23. And she fought anyway." The silence was brutal. "You're right," Min-jae said finally. "I failed her. I failed you. I was weak. And I've built my entire life trying to be strong enough that I'd never fail anyone again. But strength without knowledge is just tyranny." Amara wiped her eyes. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I want to give you everything you should have had. Education. Security. Answers. A family. I have a family. My grandmother raised me. I know. And I'll be grateful to her forever. But I'm still your father. And if you'll give me a chance, I'd like to try to be that." "Why now? Why not 5 years ago? 10? "Because I didn't know. And now I do. And I can't unknow it." Amara looked at this man. Powerful, feared, apparently capable of terrible things, and saw something she didn't expect. Regret. Real crushing regret. "The DNA test," she said. "When will you have results?" "Monday. But I already know." "How?" He gestured to their arms. "Because my mother was right. Matching marks mean matching souls. And because when you walked in, I felt it. You're mine." Amara's breath caught. "Don't say that like it's romantic. It's genetics. It's more than genetics. It's a second chance I don't deserve, but I'm begging you to give me anyway." The cafe hummed around them. Conversations, laughter, the hiss of espresso machines. Normal life. but between them nothing was normal. I need time, Amara said. I need to think, to process. It's too much. Take all the time you need. And I need boundaries. I don't know you. You don't know me. We can't fast forward to some perfect father-daughter relationship. Agreed. And your family. If they threatened my mother once, they'll never touch you. I promise you that. How can you promise that? Min Jae's expression hardened into something dangerous. Because I'm not 21 anymore. I control everything they built. And I'll burn it all down before I let anyone hurt you. The words should have sounded dramatic. Instead, they sounded like a simple statement of fact. Amara shivered. I should go, she said, standing. Min Jae stood as well. Can I see you again? After the DNA results. We'll talk then. Amara, she paused. Thank you, he said quietly, for giving me this chance. I don't deserve it. No, she agreed. You don't. But my mother loved you once. And she wanted me to know you. So I'm doing this for her. She left before he could respond. Outside, she walked 3 blocks before she had to stop, lean against a wall, and breathe through the panic. She just had coffee with her father. Her father, who was apparently a crime boss. Her father, who'd loved her mother and lost her. Her father, who looked at her like she was both a miracle and a curse. Her phone buzzed. Dorothy, how did it go? I don't know, Grandma. I don't know anything anymore. Come back to the hotel. I made tea. We'll talk. Amara walked back through the streets of Seoul, a city that felt more foreign than ever, carrying the weight of a truth she never asked for but could no longer escape. Behind her, in the cafe, Min Jae sat alone for another hour, staring at the chair where his daughter had been, wondering if redemption was possible, or if he was simply adding another person to the long list of people he'd failed. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This story is just beginning, and trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next when the DNA results come back and Min Jae's family finds out he has a daughter. The DNA results arrived Monday morning at 6:47 a.m. Min Jae was already awake. He hadn't really slept. When his phone buzzed with the encrypted email, he opened it in his private office, the city still dark below him. Paternity probability, 99.9997%. He read it 3 times, then closed his eyes and let himself feel it. She was his, not metaphorically, not emotionally, scientifically, irrefutably, legally his. Amara Washington, 24 years old, living in Seoul, working a job far beneath her abilities, alone, vulnerable, his daughter. He forwarded the results to Dorothy with a single line. Thank you for finding me. Then he called Choi. I need everything. Full background on Amara Washington. Employment records, financial status, living situation, associates, everything. And I need a security team on her. Rotating shifts. She's never alone. She doesn't need to know they're there. Sir, what's the situation? She's family. That's all you need to know. Understood. Min Jae made 2 more calls, his lawyer and his accountant. By noon, paperwork would be filed. Trusts established. Money moved. By the end of the week, Amara would have access to resources she didn't know existed yet. And then, the hard part, he had to tell his family. The Kong family held formal dinners every Sunday at the estate in Hanamdong. Attendance was mandatory. Absence was treason. Min Jae had attended every Sunday for 23 years without fail. This Sunday, he arrived with a folder and a decision. His father, Kang Dae-young, sat at the head of the table. 81 years old, still sharp, still cruel. His younger brother Ji-hoon sat to the left with his wife. His sister had flown in from Tokyo, sensing something was wrong. They ate in silence, always in silence. When the main course finished, Dae-young spoke. You've been distracted. What is it? Min Jae placed the folder on the table. I have a daughter. The silence became absolute. Impossible, his father said. DNA confirmed. 99.99%. Who is the mother? You know who the mother is. Jasmine. The woman you told me died 24 years ago. His father's expression didn't change. She did die. No. You paid her to disappear. She lived. She had my child. And she raised her alone because you terrorized her. Ji-hoon leaned forward. Min Jae, even if this is true, it is true. You can't bring this into the family. The board will never accept it. The old families will revolt. This girl is. Her name is Amara. And she's not a this. She's my daughter. Dae-young picked up the folder, opened it, and studied the DNA results with the same expression he used for quarterly reports. Bastard child. Foreign blood. No claim to the family. She has every claim. She's my blood. She's a liability. Where is she? Min Jae's voice went cold. That's not your concern. If she's in Seoul, she's a target. Rival families will use her. The media will destroy you. The business will suffer. Then the business suffers. Dae-young stood, slowly, his age showing for the first time. You will not acknowledge her. You will not give her the name. You will not bring her into this family. I already have. Then you are no longer my son. The room erupted. Ji-hoon arguing strategy. Hae-jin trying to mediate. Dae-young's wife silent, watching. Min-jae stood and faced his father. You stole 24 years from me. From her. You let me believe the woman I loved was dead. You terrorized a pregnant woman. And now you think you can dictate terms. I protected you. You destroyed me. You just didn't realize it because I became exactly what you wanted. But I'm done. Amara is my daughter. She will have everything she's owed. And if you or anyone in this family threatens her, I will dismantle everything you built. Not for revenge. Just because I can. He left before anyone could respond. Outside, his hands were shaking. Not from fear. From rage. From 24 years of silence breaking open. He called Amara. She answered on the third ring. Hello. The results are in. It's confirmed. You're my daughter. A long silence. Then, I know. The doctor sent me a copy too. How do you feel? Terrified. Confused. A little relieved. I don't know. I told my family tonight. How did that go? Badly. They don't want to acknowledge you. Then don't. I didn't ask for this. Amara, I'm not asking permission. You're my daughter. I'm going to protect you, provide for you, and be in your life. The only question is whether you want that too. She was quiet for so long he thought she'd hung up. I want to try, she said finally. But slowly. No pressure. No expectations. Just let's figure out who we are to each other. Deal. And Min-jae. Yes. Thank you. For fighting for me. My mom would have liked that. The line went dead. Min-jae stood in the darkness of his compound, looking at the estate that had been his prison and his kingdom, and made a choice. Blood wasn't about name or title or legacy. Blood was about the people you chose to fight for when the world said they didn't matter. And Amara mattered. Whatever came next, war with his family, threats from rivals, scandal in the press, he would face it. Because for the first time in 24 years, he had something worth protecting. Not an empire, a daughter, and he would not fail her again.